Tulsi Gabbard, as I'm sure you guys have heard, did her big "I'm leaving for the Democratic Party" moment, and we're already seeing exactly why she's doing this. We already knew, I'd say, but to give you perspective, and then we'll look at her on Fox News and also endorsing Kari Lake. She was a Democratic congresswoman. She ran for president, and I never got a good vibe off of her. She seemed kind of not an honest candidate and not an honest person, but in the moment she pretended to be sort of progressive on some issues and a Democrat. Well, what I think happened then is she realized, okay, I'm getting barely any support within the Democratic Party. People aren't grabbing onto my message that much, but I have a little bit of this kind of cult building around me of people who are enjoying what I'm putting out there. And so she realized maybe, and again, this is me speculating what I think was going through her mind. You can't really know, but I could have a very lucrative career as the individual who was a Democratic congresswoman and then just couldn't take it anymore. The Democrats are too crazy these days and can get all these beautiful speaking gigs in front of conservatives whining about that, can get in front of all of the biggest audiences, get on Fox News as we're about to watch here. And that's what's happened. She guest hosted Tucker Carlson's show. I'm sorry, in American politics, you don't go authentically from running for president as a Democrat to guest hosting and supporting Tucker Carlson's message. That's just not real. That is, again, an obvious grift in my mind. But here's another example of that. She is endorsing Kari Lake and saying that it's the Democrats who are against democracy. Please.
Now she's leaving the Democrat Party, and tonight she's endorsing Arizona's Republican gubernatorial candidate, Kari Lake, the former Democratic Congresswoman and 2020 presidential contender, and newly declared independent Tulsi Gabbard joins us now live from an event for Kari Lake. Tulsi, tell me about tonight and what drove you to endorse Kari Lake tonight.
Well, I'm here in Phoenix joining hundreds of people who've come out in support of Kari Lake tonight. Supposedly there was supposed to be a debate, but her opponent, Katie Hobbs, is refusing to debate her and stand toe-to-toe to compare their policies. And I think this is really indicative of the national problem that we're seeing with the current Democratic Party is rather than actually have a debate in the marketplace of ideas with the American people, where people can actually make an informed decision, they either refuse to be a part of the conversation or they throw out lies and smears and attacks seeking to undermine the credibility of anyone who dares to challenge their narrative. And this is the sort of thing that led me to leave the Democrat Party, because in my experience and also the policies and actions we're seeing coming out of this administration and this so-called woke fanatical ideologues who are controlling the party is they're against free speech. They're against democracy. They're against freedom of religion. They're against the very principles of this country, our God-given rights enshrined in our Constitution.
Okay, so let's start with her critique of the debate. We covered the fact that Katie Hobbs wasn't participating in the debate with Kari Lake. And what did I say? I said, I actually don't love that. I love when debates occur, especially with a candidate like Kari Lake who is so dishonest. You want an opportunity to challenge her directly to her face in front of the, Arizona electorate. But then I did say, you understand in a sense when someone like Kari Lake is probably more effective at debating just because she's real loud and boisterous and all that type of stuff. And do you want to stand next to her and have that level of lies be spread? Is that worthwhile? So I understood where Katie Hobbs was coming from, but I actually didn't love that she made that decision also. But if Tulsi Gabbard is saying that's an example of this trend we're seeing in the United States of Democrats not wanting to participate in the free exchange of ideas, why aren't you criticizing Herschel Walker for not going to his second debate? Just happened where we again covered this as well. The moderator goes, here's our candidates, Herschel Walker, and there's an empty podium. So this is not something that is specific to the Democratic Party. Occasionally candidates decide not to go to debates. I would rather they all go, but bizarre point to make there. And then she says they're against freedom of speech, which I'm sure she just means whenever Twitter decides to take people off their platform, which again, sometimes isn't justified, but doesn't have anything to do with the First Amendment that applies to the actions the government can take. And then she says, against democracy, completely absurd. Of course, Democratic Party is now the only party that consistently stands for the legitimacy of our elections. And the person you're endorsing goes on television and refuses to say that she'll accept the results if she loses. That's a beautiful example of being overtly against our democracy and then against freedom of religion. What she means by that is there's this narrative running that because people on the left say, hey, can we not have a theocratic government? Can we keep our government and our religion separated as is laid out in the Constitution and the Founding Fathers definitely intended? And they say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're so against our religion. No, practice whatever religion you want. Just don't demand of people that they comply with the enforcement of the government to your religion. And also don't hate people and attack people based on your religious beliefs. So completely incoherent there from Tulsi Gabbard. And again, it's just a grift. Now she gets her little Fox News gig. She gets paid much better than she probably would speaking in front of Democrats because they see her as not the most impressive candidate. And she's getting to sit alongside the gubernatorial candidate. Here is Kari Lake oddly saying that she believes, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
She believes MLK would be a MAGA Republican.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, if he was alive today.
No, did she say that?
Yep, take a look.
I'm a true believer that if MLK, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., were alive today, if JFK were alive today, if our founding fathers were alive today, they would be America First Republicans. I really believe that.
So this is one of those situations where, as you just saw there with Tulsi Gabbard, even with people who I think are really dishonest, I'll go through point by point and try to explain why they're wrong, not just say they're wrong. With that, do I really have to explain?
No, you don't. You really don't.
It's wild to me. The advocacy of Republicans is exactly diametrically opposed to what MLK stood for, as is shown by his living relatives and the individuals that they advocate for. Of course, I think it's his daughter or granddaughter who has been very outspoken about voting rights and against what the Republican Party has been doing on that front, and just completely absurd. Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democrat, just can't take it anymore and now has to be, for some reason, a completely dishonest right-winger. Interesting stuff there.